This is Israel Take 3, and I'm David Began. This season has generously been sponsored by the Sclair Family Foundation. Stick with us. October 7th. A simple date on the calendar, but when we say it, a cascade of raw, unrelenting emotions overcomes us. That day didn't just mark an event, it shattered the world that we knew, and it threw us all into an unknown reality. Life's familiar rhythms suddenly felt unfamiliar. Our priorities weren't just recalculated, they were stripped bare and redefined. Can any of us actually say that we're the same person today that we were before that dreaded day? Think about how our values and commitments have changed since then. And it doesn't matter where you live or what you do. Every one of us was affected. For Israelis living in a country with a population smaller than Los Angeles County, nearly everyone experienced personal losses. Some of us just went to funerals and wept for soldiers that we had never met. We had a WhatsApp group back then called Funerals, and messages would pop up like, "Lone soldier's funeral at Mount Herzl. Nobody is here. Who can come?" And of course, there were marches for the release of hostages, attending talks from survivors. All these things became part of our daily routine. Words or phrases that we rarely used or heard of before have become central to our vocabulary. Nova, Bibas, Hezbollah, Hostage Square, tunnel networks, Hirsch. Reflecting once on the opportunities for growth and change that could arise from times of great difficulty or upheaval, Winston Churchill once quipped, "Never let a good crisis go to waste." This quote has stuck with me for a long time. It shows Churchill's belief in the importance of leveraging challenging moments to make significant changes that would be impossible during calmer times. For Churchill, after World War II, it meant reshaping alliances in the aftermath of a catastrophic war. And it's a question that I'm sure you, my listeners, have asked yourselves as you reflect back on the last 17 months. How have I grown from the tragedy of October 7th and everything that followed that day? What have I discovered about myself? What hidden potential or parts of my personality have been unlocked? One thing that I discovered about myself is that I can actually make a pretty good podcast. I found out that the journalist in me may have been asleep for the last 3 decades, but it never died. Suddenly, that part of me woke up. And on October 23rd, just 2 weeks after the attacks, I was posting episodes of Season 1 of Israel Take 3, which we called Testimonies of War. The truth is that this wasn't my first podcast. I actually made my first podcast when I was 9 years old, back in the late 70s. Okay, we didn't have the term podcast yet, and there certainly weren't platforms like Spotify and YouTube to share these productions on. But my favorite thing to do after school was to come home and play around with those 2 Panasonic tape recorders that my brother and I had gotten for Hanukkah. You know, those iconic devices from the golden age of cassette recording technology with those big mechanical push buttons for play, stop, rewind, fast forward, record, eject. And I would sit there for hours and hours creating my own phony interviews with answers from different pop songs. I remember a few of those so-called interviews. I once had Menachem Begin on the show. I asked him what he was going to do if President Sadat would not sign the Camp David peace accords. And then, just at that moment, I hit play on the second tape deck. And
I'm gonna rock it up. I'm gonna rip it up. I'm gonna shake it up.
Another imaginary guest I remember having to the show was one of the released hostages from the U.S. Embassy in Tehran. I asked him how he felt, and with Barry Manilow queued up on deck 2,
Looks like we made it.
it's a little silly as I'm saying it now, but I was 9. What else would a 9-year-old do to waste an afternoon in the days before VCRs and Atari? So here I am in my 50s and coming back full circle to my days as a podcaster. After 14 episodes of Season 1, I needed a break. The intensity of the conversations with children who saw their fathers murdered in front of them, with people who were shot and whose children were kidnapped by Hamas, took a bit of an emotional toll on me, and I decided to take a short break. Well, that short break ended up lasting a full year. Every time I started to think about season 2, I just got overwhelmed. That initial adrenaline rush was no longer there, and the mountain of effort to write and record, edit, produce, and distribute a podcast on my own seemed like more than I could handle. And then I met Aaron. My dear listeners, I would like to introduce you to my new partner and the managing producer of Israel Take 3, Aaron Wogelenter.
What I love about the show is that you find these incredible, untold stories, and then I can come and just weave all these moments and these snippets together to really just bring them to life.
So what's ahead for season 2? Well, I've been thinking a lot lately about courage. What is the anatomy of courage? What are the components of a courageous decision? Actually, I think the word decision is the key to answering this. What is a decision? What does it mean to decide? So it turns out that the word decide shares a common Latin root with similar sounding words like suicide, homicide, genocide, and insecticide. You see, side means to kill or to cut off in Latin. Homicide, to side, kill a Homo sapien. Insecticide, it's a chemical that's designed to side, kill insects. And decide, it actually means to side or to kill options or other possibilities. When we are wavering between two very compelling options or directions, and we have to choose one at the expense of the other, we have to decide or kill one option to grab onto the other one. To have courage requires that one is able to decide. But not every decision is courageous. If I sit with my wife at Kitsefet, if you know, you know, and I have to choose between Oreo cookie or pistachio, my two go-to flavors, and I decide to go with the Oreo and kill the option of pistachio, I did decide, but it was not courageous. If your child is in terrible pain or running a very high fever, and you decide to take her to the emergency room, you did something important, but nobody is going to see you as a hero. Why isn't this considered an act of courage? Simply because there's no valid reason not to take her. There's no opposing value that you have to kill off in order to rush her to the hospital. It could be an act of courage, but it would require some other factors, like overcoming a pressing reason not to take her. Let's say that you're a Palestinian, and the hospital that you need to take her to is a Jewish one. And Hamas has told all the Palestinians that if you take your child to a Jewish hospital, you are a traitor to the revolution, and your family will be punished severely. Now, if you take her to the Jewish hospital, you are a hero. You acted with courage. Courage happens when we have conflicting values that are each pulling us strongly in opposite directions. And then it somehow becomes clear to you that one of these two values is more of a value than the other. And you decide, there's that word again, you kill the other value, and you act in accordance with the stronger value at the cost of sacrificing the very strong, but ever so slightly less powerful pull of the opposing value. If I asked you why you did this thing, and the response was, well, what choice did I have? What alternative was there? And if it's true that there really was no alternative, then what you did may have been important, but I don't see that as courage. But if there is an alternative, and that alternative would have been easier and demanded less of you, or the alternative would have allowed you more time in the comfort zone, and nonetheless you chose to leave that comfort zone and sacrifice something precious to align with that higher value, wow, that's courage. Okay, I think you're getting the point. This is what our new season is about. Courage. And that's why season 2 of Israel Take 3 will be called simply Courage.